Imagine returning home after a long journey, only to find everything you hold dear destroyed, your loved ones gone, and your life turned upside down. This is precisely what David and his men faced when they returned to Ziklag. In an instant, their lives were thrown into chaos. The town had been raided, homes were burned, and families were taken captive. This story of David is a powerful testimony of faith, perseverance, and leadership in the face of overwhelming odds. Through it, we are reminded that even in our darkest moments, hope can be found in trusting God. Let's delve into this compelling story, where David's strength was in his unwavering trust in the God who never fails. As we journey through this tale, we will uncover lessons that are as relevant today as they were centuries ago. Lessons on faith, leadership, community, and how we can rise above the trials we face in life. David and his men arrived back in Ziklag after a 3 days' journey. Amalekites had raided the Negev and Ziklag. They tore Ziklag to pieces and then burned it down. They captured all the women, young and old. They didn't kill anyone, but drove them like a herd of cattle. By the time David and his men entered the village, it had been burned to the ground, and their wives, sons, and daughters all taken prisoner. David and his men burst out in loud wails, wept and wept until they were exhausted with weeping. David's 2 wives, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, widow of Nabal of Carmel, had been taken prisoner along with the rest. And suddenly David was in even worse trouble. There was talk among the men, bitter over the loss of their families, of stoning him. David strengthened himself with trust in his God. He ordered Abiathar the priest, son of Ahimelech, "Bring me the ephod so I can consult God." Abiathar brought it to David. Then David prayed to God, "Shall I go after these raiders? Can I catch them?" The answer came, "Go after them. Yes, you'll catch them. Yes, you'll make the rescue." David went, he and the 600 men with him. They arrived at the brook Besor, where some of them dropped out. David and 400 men kept up the pursuit, but 200 of them were too fatigued to cross the brook Besor and stayed there. Some who went on came across an Egyptian in a field and took him to David. They gave him bread, and he ate. And he drank some water. They gave him a piece of fig cake and a couple of raisin muffins. Life began to revive in him. He hadn't eaten or drunk a thing for 3 days and nights. David said to him, "Who do you belong to? Where are you from?" "I'm an Egyptian slave of an Amalekite," he said. "My master walked off and left me when I got sick. That was 3 days ago. We had raided the Negev of the Kerethites, of Judah, and of Caleb. Ziklag we burned." David asked him, "Can you take us to the raiders?" "Promise me by God," he said, "that you won't kill me or turn me over to my old master, and I'll take you straight to the raiders." He led David to them. They were scattered all over the place, eating and drinking, gorging themselves on all the loot they had plundered from Philistia and Judah. David pounced. He fought them from before sunrise until evening of the next day. None got away except for 400 of the younger men who escaped by riding off on camels. David rescued everything the Amalekites had taken, and he rescued his 2 wives. Nothing and no one was missing, young or old, son or daughter, plunder or whatever. David recovered the whole lot. He herded the sheep and cattle before them, and they all shouted, "David's plunder!" Then David came to the 200 who had been too tired to continue with him and had dropped out at the brook Besor. They came out to welcome David and his band. As he came near, he called out, "Success!" But all the mean-spirited men who had marched with David, the rabble element, objected. "They didn't help in the rescue. They don't get any of the plunder we recovered. Each man can have his wife and children, but that's it. Take them and go. Families don't do this sort of thing. "Oh no, my brothers," said David as he broke up the argument. "You can't act this way with what God gave us. God kept us safe. He handed over the raiders who attacked us. Who would ever listen to this kind of talk? The share of the one who stays with the gear is the share of the one who fights. Equal shares. Share and share alike." From that day on, David made that the rule in Israel, and it still is. On returning to Ziklag, David sent portions of the plunder to the elders of Judah, his neighbors, with a note saying, "A gift from the plunder of God's enemies." He sent them to the elders in Bethel, Ramoth Negev, Yatir, Aroer, Sifmoth, Eshtemoa, Rakal, Jerahmeelite cities, Kenite cities, Hormah, Bor Ashan, Athach, and Hebron, along with a number of other places David and his men went to from time to time. When David faced one of the darkest moments of his life, he didn't give up or give in to despair. Instead, he sought strength from God. In today's fast-paced world, when things fall apart, we too can find peace and direction by turning to God in prayer. Despite the anger of his men, David remained calm and compassionate, eventually guiding them through the storm. We can learn from David's example. Great leadership isn't about power, but about serving others, showing grace, and making decisions that benefit the greater good. David's insistence on sharing the spoils with those who stayed behind teaches us the value of fairness and inclusion. Whether in business, family, or community, success is sweeter when it is shared. The contributions of every individual, no matter how small, should be recognized and appreciated. David didn't punish the 200 men who were too tired to continue the battle. Instead, he shared the victory with them. Where burnout and fatigue are common, we should remember to uplift and support those who are struggling rather than leaving them behind. David's success wasn't just because he prayed, it was also because he acted on God's guidance. In life, we must couple our faith with action. Trusting God is essential, and we must also step out in faith and work toward the goals He sets before us. David's story in Ziklag is a timeless reminder that victory in life doesn't always come from our own strength or resources, but from our faith in God and the community we build around us. David showed remarkable leadership by first turning to God for guidance and then sharing the spoils equally with all his men, regardless of their role in the battle. His fairness and reliance on God's strength not only restored his community, but also strengthened their unity. In today's world, where people often face crises, challenges, and moments of feeling overwhelmed, David's story reminds us to seek God's wisdom before making decisions and to rely on the strength that comes from faith. It shows the importance of supporting others and building up those who are weary. In moments of despair, we, like David, can find our greatest strength not in our abilities, but in God's guidance and grace.